So the word epistemology actually is quite new. I mean, in terms of hundreds of years, it was created by a British fellow, James Frederick Ferrier. I don't have exactly the date of the year when he created or he coined that word, but I put on the screen is the date of birth and of death, so you have an idea when it did occur. So epistemology is a complicated word, a buzzword, or a bombastic word. It comes from episteme, a Greek word that means, in ancient Greek time, understanding, or the skill, the skill of doing something, of having a work. Knowledge or science. And logi comes from the Greek word logos, which means either the word, the speech, the discourse, or to tell an account of something, or to reason. So it has to do with rationality and talking about rationality. So in a nutshell, you understand that that word was coined in the 19th century in order to grasp the idea of what is a theory of scientific knowledge. That's the first meaning of epistemology. And you can enlarge that meaning about what is a general theory of human knowledge. But let's focus on the theory of scientific knowledge, which is already a good approach of the question. So we are going to talk today along what I call a timeline of epistemology, because actually the word is new, but the concept is not new. It goes back in history a long time ago. So I'm going to see with you, step by step, what are the real main steps that anyone should have in mind when the word epistemology comes into the discussion. So we had first a very long period that I call the time of rationalism, where people were thinking that science, knowledge is about reasoning, it's about deduction. We are going to come back to those meanings. But it's all started in the Greek time, in the 6th century BC with Pythagoras, and also a little bit later with Democritus, Plato, Aristotle. Special mention of Democritus, he was also one of the very first skeptic. We're going to come back to the idea of skepticism, which has to do with the epistemology as well. But he was also mainly a rationalist. The first rationalists were Democritus, Plato, and Aristotle, and they were living more or less at the same period, a few decades of precision. And Plato is the first one that was really describing what is the science of the knowledge. A very important thing is, from the very beginning, Pythagoras and Democritus, Plato, and Aristotle were emphasizing on the fact that logical simplicity is a tool of knowledge progress. I repeat because it's extremely important, and you will see that all along the slides under different forms. Very soon and very early in the build of a discourse of what is the knowledge, what is the science, people identify that logical simplicity is a tool of knowledge progress. So in that time, it was very much in terms of demonstration and also a bit of clarity. So Plato was the first one to really state that knowledge is a belief that is true and that is justified. If that belief that people have is not true, or if it is not justified, then it's not real knowledge. So that is a really important first cornerstone. because it has been discussed later on, but it's probably the base of any science. The information must be true and must be justified. Later on, people will discuss about what is true and what can be demonstrated, but that's another story. We're going to go there. The example of what is simple and what can be demonstrated as true and justified by the pure power of the reasoning and the deduction is that Pythagoras theorem. So you see the small picture, you have the famous triangle. All of you remember from your school day that the square of the small size plus the square of the other side equal to the square of the hypotenuse. And that was demonstrated without real experiment, just by pure reasoning, in the way that you see. You can represent the square of all sides by those quantity of square that you put. So the units of length on the A side, you can see 1, 2, 3. But if you square it, the square of 3 is 9. So you can represent it by a bigger square that contain 9 little squares. Same, the length of B is 1, 2, 3, 4 units. And if you square that quantity, you have a 16 size square. And the C, you look at the hypotenuse, you have 5 little square that represent the length. If you square that number, you can represent that length to the square by a huge square, and you can count all the little square. Then, if you count the sum of the square in A and the sum of squares of B, you will find the same exact number of the sum of square in C. So it was a demonstration that was sort of proving that the belief that the hypotenuse, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the square of the two other sides is something that is true, and it is justified by this reasoning.